Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Landy Lodge, where today we have a very special episode lined up for you all. I've got an amazing guest who I cannot wait to talk to. But before we get into that, there are some people we need to thank, and those people being the sages of the lodge, those sickos and normies who give as little as 1 gil a month to keep my nonsense going and keep me running my mouth. So without further ado, a major thank you to Charlotte, Alex, Chris, Maria, Shane, David, Scott, Jill, Corey, Twilight, Taborski, Kevin, AJ, Michael, Andrew, Brendan, Gaseous Snake, Mookie, OJ, Jordan, Corey, Axel, DJ, Brady, Jack Tupark, Cosmic Heyman, and Damn Amazing, and Seth Stanford. Thank you all very much. That list has gotten so long, we're going to need to figure out another intro. But speaking of intros, without further ado, a man who needs no introduction, Next Gen Novelist, today's guest. Dude, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to be back in the lodge, live and in the lodge.
Dude, I'm very happy to have you here. It's been a little bit over a year since we last spoke, but I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm really happy to have you back. You know you're always welcome here. But before we move on and before we maybe dive into Luxord, do you want to take a quick minute, maybe let everybody know what you do and let them know where they can find you?
Yeah. I overthink things like Kingdom Hearts, mostly Kingdom Hearts. I'm gonna start trying to overthink other things as well, other JRPGs, other games. But for the most part, most of the content that I make is usually some form of gameplay analysis, or really, it's more going to be expanding into just media analysis. But for the moment, it's mostly Kingdom Hearts content. So you'll find a lot of theories, a lot of discussion videos, and stuff of that nature. I don't do live streams very often, but every once in a while, I might just randomly go live and it will be hit or miss. But may like it, may not. But yeah, that's most of the stuff that I do. I don't think there's much really anything too crazy. And my channel of course is Next Gen Novelist, just Next Gen Novelist.
Yeah, I mean, look, very easy to find. I've gone and thrown his link into the chat for you all. You can also check the episode description. All his links will be there as well. But without further ado, man, the whole reason this conversation is happening is because you made this video about Luxord that I must have watched 4 times now. And, you go over a lot of different things, but there's a particular prospect in that video that gets me really excited. And it's the idea that Luxord could be connected to the Master of Masters period in time. Do you maybe want to maybe give like a quick drive-by of sort of the things you brought up in that video, and we could use that as a jumping up point, because I cannot wait to talk to you about this character.
Yeah, so basically, it started from a video I made before that, which was about the ancient Keyblade legacy. So basically, and I said this at the end of that video, and this isn't a joke, I didn't just say this, but I was watching Just a Pancake, if any of you know Just
Yes,
a
we
Pancake.
miss him. We miss him, man.
I was watching some of his videos, and then I ended up watching I believe it was, God damn it, now I'm forgetting their name, but it was someone who made a video about a Discord chat with Zemnis and all the create organization members, and I was watching it, just because it's a Discord chat, that's funny. But then as I was actually watching it, I was actually paying attention to what Zemnis was saying, and I was like, hold on a minute, this guy said that he gathered these four so that they could reveal their ancient keep legacy, and I'm like, hold on a minute, like there's a lot there that no one's really speaking about.
Right?
So
Like,
I
how the hell
started
do you know that, Zemnis?
right, like how did he know that? But then also it's like implying, oh, my plan is related to you guys revealing your legacy, and then I start thinking, but they don't reveal it though. So how is that your plan for them to reveal it and then they don't? So that got me thinking at first when I started diving into other things. And then of course, because Luxord or Luxord, I'd say Luxord, but I know they say Luxord in the game.
It was an
Because
adjustment for me too, man. I said Luxord for
yeah,
years.
I don't feel like I'm going to be able to drop it. I should, but but because of him in particular, him and Demix, and Demix is is an enigma. I mean, there's some people who have said to me, next gen, make it through on Demix, and I've got it down. I promise I'm gonna figure out a way to try and do it.
Have you scrapped together enough to make a Demix theory? Because all we have is
You
breadcrumbs,
know,
dude.
you want to know the truth, Landy? The answer is no. The honest truth is no. I ain't scrapped together any, but like the no, not really. But I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try and make something halfway logical.
If anyone
Don't
could do
expect.
it, you could do it, man.
I appreciate that, but we'll see. But yeah, I basically wanted Luxord. I wanted to explain why, like, where does he come from? So as I was looking at the Keyblade Legacy thing, I just went over different cutscenes, and of course, the main cutscene that was really a big deal was the beginning of Remind, where he's having the discussion with Luxu about the black box, and then Luxu, says that line that everyone was pointing out, like, "Who are you, Luxord?" And it's like, oh, and then at the end, we feel like, oh, we know who he is because we just saw him in the car with Yuzora. So he's Yuzora's driver. That's who he is. But that doesn't explain, though, the Keyblade Legacy part, because the other,
It doesn't
like,
explain his motivations.
right, like it's just, and even his talk with him about the black box just seemed sus, like he already knew about it. And it's like, I was trying to figure out, like, how does he know? Like, I'm
Well,
not saying
can I tell you what my impression with him in the black box is? So I feel like, he kind of infiltrated the Dark Seeker saga with this exterior agenda that connects him back to Quadratum, right? And I think he kind of knew who everybody was. He knew who all the players were, but but Zigbar in this black box were sort of like this outlier where he's like, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't have any intel about this. I don't know. It just seems like his perspective when he starts questioning Zigbar is like, hey, you're the control here. There's something going on here that I wasn't expecting, and it all points to you. I almost feel like the black box was almost like this red flag to Luxord that, it was different than something he might have been expecting.
right, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting though, because when he says, like, when Zigbar or Luxu, when he says to him, "Who are you?" Right? I mean, for starters, that seems to pretty much, in my mind anyway, almost snipe the idea that he's from a period Luxu would have been in. Now, I'm not saying it does for certain, but like, because my belief was, and I did say it in that video, I do think it's possible we'll see him in a Missing Link, or he's from that scholar. But the main thing that was kind of making me think, I don't know, is the fact that it's like, is Luxu in Missing Link? It seems like he's there. And if he's there and he doesn't know who Luxord is, I mean, are they not in the same place? It just seemed to me like, why doesn't he know who he is? If, like, Luxu's literally from as far back in the timeline as we've ever seen in the series. So, and he knows the master directly. So it's like, if there's
Wouldn't he have been in the Book of Prophecies, right? You know what I mean? I know Luxu didn't get a copy necessarily, but it's sort of this idea that you're pointing to where it's like, Luxu dates back as far as we can remember. He's aware of all the pieces that are on the board, but Luxord seems to be one of the few people who slid under his radar. He doesn't quite know what to make of Luxord, and Luxu and Zigbar seems to have a beat on everybody.
Right. And the thing is that his specific task was to basically observe everything, so it's kind of like, if there was anything important that was going on, he really should have been aware of it, and he should have taken, like, I don't know, because I know it's kind of like, well, realistically, can he really be everywhere at one point? Like, can he really see everything? But still, if Luxord is that important, that Xemnas has been like, I want this guy in the organization, and he's got a Keyblade legacy, and that's important, that implies it means his past life must have been of significance in some way. Because the thing is about Demix and Luxord, we don't know what they are doing exactly, but you can kind of use the other two people in that scene to kind of form your ideas around it. So we've got Marluxia and Larxene, and we know that that's, Elrena and Laurium, and we know what their story basically is now. So based off of how important they have been, it kind of means like, you would expect to see a similar amount of importance then towards Demix and Luxord. At the very least, I don't know. I would think with Luxord. Demix might end up just being a troll thing where it's kind of just like, oh, he actually isn't that important, and everyone was overthinking. but,
But
but
I don't
like,
know, to throw ancient Keyblade Legacy on him, that's not throwing words around lightly. I mean, if we do what you're saying and kind of use Larxene and Marluxia as this template of like, okay, there were 4 of them scattered there. 2 of
mhm,
them connect us back to Union Cross, the Key Saga, right? Perhaps Luxord and Demix are like, and you kind of alluded to this in your video, and I'm going to tell you why I actually think you have a case here. Maybe they're from Missing Link. Maybe they're part of that Missing Link era, right? Because one, it's Scala. And one, like, I know I'm a little scattered here, but I'm going to take it back. This is Xemnas who sang it to him, right? And we know Xemnas is connected to Xehanort, and Xehanort had an awareness that Quadratum and Unreality existed. So, if we take that a step further and bring ourselves to Missing Link, which is the foundation of Scala, which is where Xehanort is from, this is where Keyblade wielders are being brought up now, and maybe this is going to show us how Luxord got to Quadratum, because this is clearly going to be a saga where this will be the first time reality touches unreality. That's what I think we're going to see in Missing Link. I think you're going to see that Scala at Kylum Civilization find a way to reach unreality, and I think it's actually going to show us, or potentially could show us, how Luxord crossed over from one side to the other. Because you brought it up in your video, we have this almost like chicken and the egg problem here, where it's like, well, where is he from first? Is he from the Kingdom Hearts side of reality or the Yozora side of reality? Like, which side did he originate from? But we do know he could traverse between both, which is why I can't help but feel like Missing Link might really go into this.
yeah, I think it kind of has to, especially, and actually because of something that's been revealed more recently, which is the whole Sigurd thing.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Sigurd's the voiceover for the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer seems to strongly imply to me he must have something to do with Quadratum, which means, seeing as how he's in Missing Link first, there must be something going on with him in Missing Link that links to Quadratum. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I think that one way or another, that game definitely is definitely going to tie strongly into, and it would make sense because it's a game that comes right before Kingdom Hearts 4. So I feel like it would make sense to make that game kind of build towards that, especially since we don't know when Kingdom Hearts 4 is coming out. So for the time being, it might be good to have the game that feels like, okay, we're kind of building in that direction towards Kingdom Hearts 4, and then hopefully it'll be kind of done by the time. I don't know if it'll be done then again because it's a mobile, but hopefully it will be done. It won't be like ridiculously, like drawn out or something before Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out. Because it seems like the type of story that should be completed before Kingdom Hearts 4, because it's meant to be the missing link so that we can understand,
Right.
I guess, in pieces before we play that game. And that's why I do agree. Yeah, I think that there has to be certain details covered then that relates to Kingdom Hearts 4. And since Kingdom Hearts 4 is focused on Quadratum and Unreality, then those things should be there. So I would say Sigurd, Demix, Luxord, they are literally the missing links to the ancient Keyblade legacy that we don't know about. And it's funny because they're not, even though those 4 in that scene are the ones that I pointed out, they're not actually the only characters in the present day, obviously, from that time, because you've also got Scold, right?
Right.
We don't know if it's Scold, but Subject X, who I'm pretty sure it's Scold, but we don't technically know. And then you've also got Ventus, and I pointed this out in my Ancient Keyblade Legacy video, but it's very interesting that all of the characters that Xehanort had a relationship with, well, the player had a relationship with, it's interesting how all of them ended up in some shape or form becoming related to Xehanort later on, so like Ventus in the Union Cross time, obviously he goes to the future, and then immediately when Xehanort finds him, it's like, let me use you to forge the Keyblade and blah 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 blah. Scold, if it is Scold, when she ends up as Subject X, who gets to her? Apprentice, Xehanort, and then he's experimenting on her. You know what I mean? Like with Marluxia and Larxene, they've been found. We know that they had a connection, and who they end up with? Xemnas. So the only 2 people we don't see with a form of Xehanort, like in the past, is Demix and Luxord. So we still need to understand, how did Xemnas know about their legacy? It implies he must have had some, like, if there must have been some relationship in the past. That's what I'm personally thinking. I don't know. But I would say, even though we're looking to Missing Link, you could potentially see something in Dark Road to do with one of them. I don't know. Just because of the simple fact that young Xehanort is in that game, and that game is about Xehanort's backstory. So And I did point out in that video, young Xehanort is the only version of Xehanort. If I'm pretty sure he's the only version of Xehanort that hasn't had a direct relationship yet with one of these ancient characters. All the rest of them have in some shape or form.
And this is why I'm a big believer that we're yet to see the last of Xehanort, because there are those little unfinished plot threads that you're bringing up. But I won't lie, you kind of blew my mind with this idea that all those characters that the player had a connection with ended up linking back up towards Xehanort or finding their way back to Xehanort. Like, Luxord and Demyx aside for a minute, because they didn't really have a relationship with the player. But what you said right there, it kind of blew my mind a little bit, honestly, because, now the player reincarnating into Xehanort makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
now it makes sense why all those characters were kind of involved.
Yeah, because it's you remember in Dark Road, he says at the beginning he has these memories of his past life, but he specifically calls them his friends in his memories. So he still is saying like, oh, maybe if I go to these other worlds, I can find my friends. He's still saying his friends, So I don't know how that plays out in Dark Road, but if he still holds that dear to him, like these people could be his friends, I don't know. Maybe it's weird to think that because he experiments on them and he's not exactly nice to them as Xehanort, so I don't know if he really is thinking of them as his friends anymore. But I do think it's interesting how that relationship seems to have carried over into the present day, even if it's a little warped. You know what I mean? It's also why it'd be interesting with Strelitzia being back. It's like even with that, it's like that's there. Is there some will there be like a Xehanort interaction, which you would think there couldn't be, but I don't know. I don't know. Like,
do you think there's a connection between Sigurd and Luxord?
I think it's. I think I've got this feeling he's one of the two, but I'm leaning more towards Demyx for some reason. But I really do feel like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just because. I think it's because with. I don't know. I think it's because. Okay, so Demyx seems like he doesn't like fighting and any of that kind of stuff. And you did a video on this talking about like Sigurd's role in myth as like this kind of hero and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think a folk hero.
Yeah, I think it'd be very ironic if the guy who later on is like, oh, I don't like fighting, and he kind of seems like he wants to be anything but a hero, anything but involved. It'd be interesting if originally he was actually a bit more of a heroic character, in some shape or form. I don't know, but given the fact that I don't know, because Sigurd, with his voice being in Kingdom Hearts, in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer as the voiceover, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means he's in Kingdom Hearts 4 as Sigurd, or if, like you're saying, could it potentially be foreshadowing the fact that he's Luxord? I don't know, but it kind of makes me feel like he's a separate person from Luxord, just because we've seen Luxord in Quadratum. Well, I guess technically we don't know for certain it's him, but it seems like he's the driver for you.
I honestly, I'm at the point where I would almost confirm that that's got to be Luxord, because you brought it up a little bit earlier. It would make perfect sense, right? The crux of Kingdom Hearts 3 is who are you, Xigbar? Turns out he's Lushu. That's the big final scene, the big reveal. What is like that final part of Remind? What's your final little twist? Exactly, and it opens up with who are you, Luxord, and then Remind ends, and it's like, oh, he's connected to Yozora. Yeah, dude. I mean, there's, I'm not sure if Sigurd is going to end up as Luxord or Sigurd ends up as Demyx. I'm not sure if we get literally like, I'm almost tempted to believe that Luxord's going to have a similar moment to Lushu, just with all the overlap between the two. Like, he's going to take his herd off. Someone's going to call him Sigurd and be like, I haven't heard that name in a long while. Like, I could see it. Poetry rhymes. I get it. But I almost wonder if, like, again, the prospect you brought up that Luxord could be from the Master's time. What if Sigurd is too? What if some of the Master's old friends have actually been like trying to reach him this whole time and have been trying to like either infiltrate his plan or stop him? I don't know. But you're right to not ignore that this whole era that we've never seen has been introduced, even just verbally. But you have to believe that it's not. It would be hard for it to just be, okay, the Master's the only one left from that time. There's got to be one other person lingering around, right?
Yeah, I just think that it was one of those things that, like, I mean, I guess for me, when I look at things like that, I always think, what was the purpose behind Nomura bringing that detail up? Because he could have easily have just made it something. I don't know. It was a bit too vague. Like it's like, okay, he says that there was other masters, and then Lucio's like, I think Lucio's like, was there other masters? And he's like, oh, I'm the only one that mattered and stuff like that. And it's like, huh, what does that mean? Like
Yeah.
that feels like that's got a context to it that we like that we would learn about, so we can understand why he said that. Because you know what I mean? I don't know. It's
No,
just the
I'm
way,
with you. I'm with you.
yeah, it's just the way it's written. It's just kind of like that sounds to me like, oh, there's a mystery there. Like, why would he say he's the only one that mattered? You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's deliberately trying to say there might be other people who mattered. And just
But
knowing
maybe
King,
they didn't suit his vision, or they didn't share his vision. You
right?
know?
Because I mean, the thing is, we given the fact, I mean, it's just like you had this war, and you're telling me there was all these people and all this stuff, and you're the only one left, but yet there's multiple darknesses, but just one you. It's kind of like so there's all these darknesses, but there's just you, one. There's no one else, and I'm just kind of thinking, okay, then you've got the kid that you literally gave basically the same look as you with the same coat, and you're like, oh, take my eye and take this box, and you give him all these very specific things, and Lucio is literally like he's almost like the master's son compared to the other foretellers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
no,
like
I would agree. He's like the
it,
main apprentice.
yeah, and it's like there's some blatant favoritism, I'd say, between him and Arthur, but definitely a bit of Lucio. And again, I know in my video, like I did kind of think, it could be a reach, but he does have like the Lux thing in his name, and then there's Luxord, or Luxord, and he's got it, and they're clashing, and they both have this in their name, and there's no one else, and then Lux itself as a word is treated as something in that specific time period,
And only that specific time period. At no other
right,
time has light been referred to as Lux, but in the Master's time.
right, which means it's like part of, I don't want to say their language, but it's part of how they describe things. Obviously, they say
Yeah.
light, but it's part of like if let's say you had a kid in that time period and you gave them a name, it's reasonable to think you might put Lux in their name because that's part of how you talk. It's part of your everyday language is saying Lux, and you got to think like that was the major conflict between all of them was the Lux, and we need to get more light, or your union's getting more Lux. What's going on? Like that was the main thing that drove them apart. Ironically, was the Lux. And I just find that very interesting that there's this other guy that apparently has a Keyblade legacy, an ancient Keyblade legacy. We don't know what it is. There's a time period we know nothing about. And then bear in mind, there's the stuff you were saying in your theory, and the very popular theory now that the Master of Masters could be related to light, or his name could be a derivative of light, or something like that. And you've got two characters that are supposedly ancient as well with light in their name. I mean,
Yep. And we still don't know what era they point to.
right. Right. I mean, Lucio, we know, but yeah, with Luxord, we don't know anything. And obviously, Demix is I would say a bit more of an enigma just because of the fact we know literally nothing.
Like literally nothing. That's funny because that's kind of what made him a viable candidate to be the master, even though I don't believe in that at all. But I understand why people feel that way, because it's like, well, his whole backstory is kind of this blank slate, so he can kind of slide into different positions. And I don't know, he's an interesting one to me. I don't know why they're holding their cards on him so long, especially since he was introduced like so early compared to maybe some others. But it's like, I don't know, man. There's something else about Luxord that tips me off, though. In that whole scene with Zigbar that you bring up. So he asks, like, who are you, Zigbar? But he was never interested in the answer to that question. And I have to think, what position is Luxord in? What does he know / what is he up to that he says, it doesn't matter. I'm content to feign ignorance. I don't need to know who you are to handle what I need to handle. Like, for him to have all those suspicions, but for it to not quite matter who Zigbar is, I can't quite piece those two things together yet. I don't know how I can logically string it together where it's like he's on to him, but doesn't care to know his name.
I think that that's probably linked to his role in Quadratum, like, and maybe the wild cards that he gave to Sora, and like, if he had.
I liked your little edit, by the way, from Kingdom Hearts 2 when he pulls the one card out.
Yeah,
Perhaps he'd
yeah,
like a hand at his fate. I just wanted to give you some editing props there. I love that in your video.
yeah. I barely edited that video, so I had to do something. I was like, let's just okay. I'll just put this in real quick. That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's enough editing for this video. But like, yeah, I've just kind of thought like. I do think maybe it's something to do with Quadratum because we don't know what's going on that side. I mean, if he's the driver, right? So he's calling Yuzora commander. Now that implies to me he's pretty integrated there. Like he's part of the chain on the hierarchy and
Oh yeah.
he knows Yuzora and you know what I mean? It's like how is he driving the commander around? He must be someone that can be close to Yuzora. There's no one else in the car with him.
Yep.
So it's kind of just like, who is he in unreality? And if he went to Kingdom Hearts reality, was that on purpose? Or was it by accident? And if it was on purpose, then he may have went there intentfully with a mission. So when he encounters Lucio, it's kind of like, whatever, I don't really care because my purpose is bigger than this anyway. Like, I'm just going to play through this, boom, whatever, throw the wild card to Sora. You know, I don't know.
Was that
like,
the crux of his mission though? Because I'm trying to think of like, okay, so what did he leave behind? What did he leave behind? Right? Because he throws the card to Sora. And I'm trying to think like, what did he leave behind in Kingdom Hearts 2? Like anything?
when he's defeated.
Yeah. Or at any point during any of his appearances. I think, if we're trying to figure out what his mission is, I almost wonder if he was trying to... Was he trying to qualify Sora? Do you think that was it? He was trying to qualify him, and after he'd seen enough, he was like, oh, you were born for these sorts of games. Now you can have this wild card. Because I know you're the guy. We can trust you,
It's really confusing because of the Keyblade Legacy thing. Like
Yeah.
it just makes me feel like because the issue is I feel like it's like which side did he come from first? If he came from Kingdom Hearts reality first, it kind of makes it hard to think why would he be so invested in unreality then? You know what I mean? Why would
Exactly.
it's but then it's kind of like we don't know the story. Maybe he ended up there and then he just started loving it and it's like actually this place is kind of cool. I don't know, like, and then he just meets people, meets Yuzora, gets a normal job, and he's like, yeah, and then they're like, oh, actually, remember that reality you came from? Yeah, we're gonna need you to head over there. And it's like, oh man, I don't want to go back there, but all right, do the job. I don't know, like, I'm just making something up, but I'm really struggling to understand what his incentive was because yeah, it seems like he has a goal larger than that. But then I don't know if that's really what it meant. And I don't know.
Was he just a delivery man right now? Was he just a delivery boy? I got to deliver this wild card to who I think we can use, Because
that was very intentful. And the fact that he said, like, might come in, what is this? Like, basically said, might come in handy or might
turn the tables.
Right. But how? It didn't do anything in Kingdom Hearts 3. And this is exactly the same as their reveal of the Keyblade Legacy. They didn't reveal it in Kingdom Hearts 3. And it's kind of like, so when is that reveal supposed to happen? You know what I mean? It's like, when, why didn't Xemnas tell them before they got their asses kicked? Hey, it's time to reveal the Keyblade Legacy, guys. Like, let's be honest, if Marluxia summoned his Keyblade in the final battle, that would have, given all the hype that was going on, that would have just been more hype. It wouldn't have been out of place. It would have just been like, oh, and now, maybe we was beating Marluxia up and then he summons his Keyblade and now it's like, oh, second form, right? Whatever. I don't know. It could have easily have gone that way, but it didn't. They lost. And I just have to think, why would Xemnas, why is there a whole scene dedicated to pointing out that they've got a Keyblade Legacy and he's specifically saying, you're going to reveal your greatest secret yet? And they don't reveal it.
So I have two answers for you. I have two potential answers for you. Here's one. Xehanort was always about a plan B. And not even just Xehanort. Like, even Ansem and Xemnas. Like, it was always about a plan B. He even has that line, I plan for every eventuality. Like, the new Princes of Heart. That was his backup plan if the Guardians couldn't bring the goods. So Xehanort's sort of this guy who he's like, well, if one vessel fails, I've got this backup vessels. That's why in Kingdom Hearts 3, one of the things that led to his downfall was he had too many backup vessels. And now Vexen's running around, and Demyx is running around, and they can switch sides, and suddenly all you did was recruit more allies for the other side. But he typically seems to like plan these things to almost try and make himself foolproof. That's one explanation, is this whole Keyblade Legacy thing might have been something that Xehanort was using as a backup plan, but was also simultaneously illustrating that Xehanort not only knew about like the whole Key Saga Union Cross era, but as we know now with Luxord in Quadratum, we now know that Xehanort knew about that world, right? Like we think of it as Melody of Memory told us Xehanort knew about Unreality. But in truth, if you piece it together, Xemnas saying to Luxord, you have this hidden Keyblade legacy, and then the end of Remind seeing Luxord in Unreality, that alone you can kind of piece it together and be like, oh wait, maybe Xehanort really knew all this time. So before I blabber any further, that's one way that could in particular work out. The other way I could potentially seeing that work out, oh, I just had it and now I lost it. Why would you bring it up and not flesh it out?
I guess
I had a number two. I just blabbed on too long. But I mean, let's just stick with the one hand. On one hand, I guess it could be Xehanort with his whole Plan B and foolproof thing.
yeah, because that's exactly why I said in my video is that I think that like if Xemnas knows, then Xehanort knows, and I think that Xehanort could potentially, just like you said, that's what my thought was, that maybe the only thing I could think of is that it must be a contingency plan. It must be like, okay, in the event we lose, you're going to reveal your greatest secret. Because the funny thing about it, and that's another thing I pointed out, was that the entire plan of them revealing the legacy doesn't even make sense unless they get defeated. Because if they don't get defeated, they can't even remember the legacy to reveal it.
That's what I was going to get at. You just brought it back. Keep going.
Okay. No, that's what I've got.
Well, that's all I was going to say is that, well, the plan's not finished. That's right. The other thing is that, well, Xehanort, who maybe both perspectives go together. Maybe the guy who plans for every eventuality, maybe he planned for his loss. And maybe at a certain point, he was like, well, we're probably going to lose. Let's put Plan C in commotion, this ancient Keyblade legacy. I don't know. It's hard to talk about an organization member without talking about Xehanort. And I'm just of this belief that we're yet to see the end of him. And I think Luxord's going to play into that because, like you said, we've seen them all connect their way to Xehanort. They all play back to Xehanort. We don't know how Xehanort knew about Demyx and Luxord. We still don't know that.
Yeah, I feel like that's you could say the missing link. I feel like that's one of the missing links. Is that, like, how does he know those two? Because Xemnas to specifically, because what he said in that scene is, how do you think I chose numbers 9 through 12? And I mean, remember, like, all 4 of them are original members. They were all there from the beginning of the series, basically.
Yep.
Right. So they're OG, which means that from back in the Kingdom Hearts, Chain of Memory days and all of that, he picked them all from back then with the Keyblade legacy in mind. So he must know about it from something from before they were in the organization. So he specifically sought them out because he already knew of them. So it implies like he must have a history, because we know why he knows about Marluxia and Luxine, because if he has memories from his time as the player, which we know he does, then he could easily, potentially remember them. Or I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. I guess it's not being fully explained why he knows even about Marluxia and Luxine, but at least with those two.
But you have a paper trail.
Yeah, we can kind of figure, okay, we know he has memories of them. So we know at least that much. So it's plausible to think he could know of them and seek them out. Like, oh, I know these 4 have got that connection. But it's the other 2, like we've been saying, we haven't seen the history yet. And that's what I think in one of these 2 games, if not both of them, maybe Demyx is in one and Luxord's in the other. Because one thing I did also mention, and you can tell me what you think of this, but I don't really feel like Luxord and Demyx have I feel like we paired them together a lot, like as if they're going to be in the exact same place at the exact same time, but they don't seem to know each other though. Like if they don't really interact. Like when I was looking through their cutscenes, they don't really talk to each other. There's no interactivity going on whatsoever. Whereas when you look at like Marluxia and Luxine, they're always like kind of flirting. And
they were always drawn to each other. Even before they had memories, there was just something about each other. They were drawn to one another.
Exactly. And then when we saw their son bodies, we saw where that came from. So it kind of like implies that if they're from the same time, then they would kind of show some sort of relationship in some way in the present day. But the fact that those 2 don't seem to have any sort of relationship whatsoever makes me wonder that they didn't know each other at all. In fact, Demyx even says something to, I think it's Vexen, where he says, "I didn't even know you in the old life" or something like that.
Yeah, no,
And
no, I didn't even know you in the old life. He said, yeah, he
right,
said exactly that.
so I feel like if he did know Luxor in the old life,
And
there
you see,
would
that's
be
a deliberate clue right there. You can't tell me that one line dialogue isn't a deliberate clue to like let the audience know, hey, Demix is not gonna just pop up in Radiant Garden as a somebody. That's not where he's from, you know?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Demix is not
Well,
sure
well,
what
he's
to
an
say.
anomaly. I mean, but to answer your question, I suppose, I don't think there's any connection between the two. I think if they end up from the same era, I think it's a matter of coincidence and saving cutscene money. So it's possible they're both from Quadratum or they're both from Missing Link. But
Or it's like
I doubt they have much of a history together, I guess is all I'm trying to say.
yeah, or it could be like like we were saying, it could be because one of them is Sigurd. Like it could if Luxord, if he's Sigurd, then Demix may not have known him as Luxord. He may have known him as Sigurd or something,
Hmm.
or vice versa. So that might be why they don't really recognize each other, because it's like maybe they were right next to each other before, but it was under different identities, so they don't realize. You know what I mean? Because it's like, would if Ephemer ran into Xehanort, would he recognize the fact that, oh, you have like a player's heart kind of within you? I don't know if he would. I feel like he would, because it's Kingdom Hearts and people seem to be able to sense things like that, but I'm not sure.
I think so. I think if the likes of Serlitzia or Skald or Ephemer, if they were to see Xehanort, I think there'd be something in them they recognize, right? I think they like no matter how vague or on the nose they play it, they could play it as vague as there's something about him that feels familiar, or it could be as deliberate as I feel my friend's heart in there. I don't know. But I have to believe whether it's in Missing Link or Quadratum, I
Mhm.
think we're going to see it play out exactly what you're saying. I think you're going to see a connection to those two characters back to Xehanort because that's another missing link, right? And that's what's kind of funny, this missing link title. I feel like that's going to apply in more ways than one. I don't think we're getting just one missing link.
Yeah, definitely not.
I think it's
There's
going to
too
be a
many
whole
anyway.
bunch of missing links, dude.
Yeah, there's too many. If it was one, that's a waste of a
It's
game.
a waste of that's a waste of a budget. That's a waste of a budget.
There's too many. Like, no, Nomura, you need to give us the answers to the keys. Like, I feel like this needs to be like all the lingering plot threads from the Key Saga. It's time to put it to rest now. Like, this is it. Like
Before
no,
Kingdom Hearts 4, 100%.
yeah, like just whatever you need to tell us about Brain, like in relation to Erica say, my grandfather disappeared. If you're gonna show us that, let's see in Missing Link. If you're
And I
gonna show
bet you
us,
he went to Quadratum.
I would not doubt it in the slightest.
I don't think because I don't think Sterlitz is the only one, right? Like no one can we just ask that question? Like, what is she doing there? How did she know to find Sora? Why is she taking care of him? Why is she showing him the ropes? What are her new motivations? Like Sterlitzia being there, like it throws a wrench into a lot. Like it's not as simple as like I know they say in the trailer, like, oh, Quadratum serves as an afterlife. But it's like, that's not as simple. No, 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 no. Sora's here because he broke a nature taboo. Sterlitzia, you were just stabbed in the back. Like, you didn't do what Sora did. So why are the two of you in the same place?
Well, that's the funny thing, because the I've seen people make the argument like, okay, well, the reason why it's the same is because in a sense Sora did die, and it's like, okay, but then you're forgetting about the other way of getting there that we know for a fact, which is the arc. And as far as we can tell, that has
Okay.
nothing to do with dying. So it's like, even if you're, because what I mean is people kind of make an argument, Streletsy and Sora, even though it doesn't seem like they got there the same way, maybe they kind of did, because maybe you could argue Sora died in a sense in the Kingdom Hearts rally. But then that doesn't explain the arc, because it's like, if the arc can send someone to the other side, how does that work? Does that count as them dying?
Right.
Or, I'm not really sure how that one
Well,
plays
because
out.
then how far do you take that, right? It's like, okay, so are Xehanort and Ericus there too? You know?
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Like, I feel like there's obviously some special conditions that have to be fulfilled, because it's even in Strelitz's case, it's like, why wasn't she just in the final world or something? You know what I mean? Or I don't know, wherever Xehanort and Ericus went, why didn't she just go there? Why
Yeah.
is it specifically that she's in Quadratum, which of course might lend credence to the fact that maybe it's because it's not it's not the original Strelitzia, could be the data one, which
She's sleeping in the box art. Not the box art, there is no box art, but in the concept art, she's sleeping, and that usually means something. when Nomura does artwork.
Yeah, it's yeah, like as if she's not fully awakened, like the actual true Shalexia is still asleep somewhere or
Hmm.
gone or something. I don't know. I find it odd because in a way, as much as I can see the data thing being plausible and it does play into potentially the true dandelion thing, which I was a big advocate of. At the same time, though, I kind of am like, okay, so let's say in theory she's the true dandelion, she gets sent through the arc, somehow, sends her through into Quadratum. Um, cool. But then it's like, how does she where does the body come? Like, did she have the body when she was sent, or did she get one later on? Like, because they didn't have replicas back in the key time, from as
Yeah.
far as I know, because Vexen invented them, right? So it's kind of
Hmm.
like, even if she was data, she wouldn't have had the physical form. So where did she? I can understand her being sent like in a disembodied way because it's Kingdom Hearts and they've done that kind of stuff with disembodied hearts and whatever. So,
Right.
but in terms of like where did her physical form come from in Quadratum and how is it a perfect replica of her? Like it's just I don't know. That's the only part of it that kind of makes me like, is it the true one or is it not? Like that's the only thing is like where did her body come from? If it isn't her. But I don't know. We don't know what's over in Quadratum, so we don't know what's possible. I don't
And
know.
who knows? There might be a whole little story to Strelitzia we don't know about. Maybe Quadratum wasn't the first place she got dropped off at. Maybe
Yeah,
after she was killed in Daybreak Town, she went somewhere else. Like maybe she went to the final world first, and through the final world, she got funneled in to unreality or something. I mean, who knows? Who knows? And again, this is where I hate to keep coming back to it, but this is where like you could use young Xehanort for all of this because he could just travel through all of time. And I wanted to bring this up earlier. The Master sends him out on that world tour, right? And we're gonna see more of that in Dark Road. Like
yeah.
they showed a little hint towards that scene. Maybe it's on that world tour that young Xehanort bumps into Demyx and Luxord. And maybe on that world tour, the Master gives Xehanort the ability to go to any time period and even to the other side of reality. You
Well,
know?
that's another thing as well. Like I don't know if I'm not sure if was it supposed to be the hooded Ansem on Destiny Islands that taught Xehanort how to time travel? I can't remember if it was explained how he learned it or not. Because I feel like it might have been the Ansem on the
I
heart
think the
of
robed, as my understanding, and people in the chat can correct us if we're wrong, but my understanding is that the robed figure is who showed young Xehanort the ropes on how to time travel.
Okay, yeah. So it wasn't the master then. Okay, cool, good. Because I was gonna say like that could potentially be how even explain that, but yeah, I guess I feel like his first meeting with the master, there's gonna have to be some things that's discussed there. Um, I'm not sure exactly what kinds of things because by the time he has the second meeting with him, where the cutscene we saw, he didn't know who he was until at the very end when he's like, my name is. He didn't know who he was. He's like, who are you? Some kind of fortune teller. So whatever their first conversation is, it's obviously not going to be very enlightening as to who he is. Or
Yeah.
because Xehanort doesn't know. So I'm not sure what he's going to talk to him about or what he's gonna tell him. But I would assume it has to be something that wouldn't give away the fact he's a master in some way because I don't know. I'm not sure what
Well,
he's
he,
doing.
he clearly never shows Xehanort a Keyblade. He definitely doesn't give off that impression to Xehanort that he has anything to do with Keyblades or anything as far as that's concerned. But as far as what we could expect to maybe see in that first conversation, maybe we can see a little bit more of, because the Master can be very tricky, right? He talks to literally every character differently. He's a different person depending on who he's speaking to. I want to see how he like schmoozes Xehanort a little bit. Like how do you show that you have such amazing capability, but convince this guy you're not a threat? Like how do you? I don't know. I
But
don't know.
also, why? What? I guess we'll have to wait to find out. But also, why is Zayn not even there? Like, how did he get there? And because
Oh, I think
from
he goes rogue, man. I think after the event, I think when his friends die in Dark Road, he just goes rogue. He doesn't want to be in Scala anymore. He doesn't. He chose the Seeker's life, like right. That's what
yeah,
Yen Sid would say. Is he eventually chooses to walk down that path? I think that is the beginning of his Seeker's path, and that's why the Master sort of uses him because like, oh, you're seeking more, and we bring this up. It's funny, we were doing a deep dive on Luxord, but here in the second half, we're talking a little bit more about Xehanort. But you know, there's a line from Remind that I still haven't really gotten my head over yet. But do you remember when, like, I think it's Terra Xehanort says to Sora, like, "Oh, so you also chose the forbidden path." So
Yeah.
like, what did Xehanort misuse the power of waking at some point? You know?
Hmm. Well, that's the thing because they know about it for sure.
Yeah.
They know about, and Xehanort says to him, "Are you prepared to pay the ultimate price?" Like, so he knows about it. He knows what's gonna happen. Young Xehanort taunts him about it and says, "Your time in this world," and like
And it's
they
particularly the young Xehanort who does that, right? Like it's almost like young Xehanort's more clued in than old man Xehanort is.
yeah, I think, well, I think old man Xehanort knows because it like in Remind he does say to him
He
stuff
definitely
like
knows. He definitely knows.
yeah, in Scala he says stuff to him like like about it when he sees him, when he sees the Sora from the future, and he's like, oh, like again, like, are you prepared to pay the ultimate price? But I think it's weird because it's like I'm just trying to think like how does that really relate to like he has to, like, we have to find out for certain in Dark Road why he knows about it. That definitely is getting answered. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
way that is not being explained. But it's kind of like how would he find out? And my thought has always been maybe it's got some relation to him trying to figure out what's going on with his memories, and he tries to look into it more, and he starts
Well,
finding stuff out.
can I
But
offer? Can I offer maybe a little pocket theory here?
yeah,
So we saw at the end of Union Cross that Xehanort was born in he was born in Scala ad Caelum, right? But not the Scala that we see him in Kingdom Hearts 3. He was born in the old Scala,
yes, yeah,
right? And I think that old Scala is going to figure out how to reach Quadratum. And I think when Xehanort gets to go on this world tour, I think
mhm.
he gets the whole time travel, he's going to go back and almost like decrypt it. I don't know. Because I keep thinking about, like, let's not forget, they deliberately showed us that he's from older Scala as opposed to like more new wave Scala. They deliberately showed us he's from that older time. We're told that older time is going to be a missing link to Quadratum. It just seems like there's that overlap between the two.
Yeah, do you, it's funny like because the way how obviously we don't know the exact events surrounding when Xehanort's born or whatever, but the way how it seems to be shown in Union Cross is like he's a baby when he's born in that old scholar, and then
Mm-hmm.
he's taken to Destiny Islands and he's still a baby, right? So
Yep.
we know he didn't spend any time growing up in that scholar, like he didn't spend any time there whatsoever, like at least growing up.
Right.
Whether he'll go back there, we don't really know. I don't know if he time travels or because that's the thing, you have to have a version of yourself or whatever to kind of go back. So I don't know if he would go back or if he'd be able to exactly go back, but I suppose maybe. But what's kind of interesting is the fact that because he's born in that time, I keep thinking that a missing link, it's like a lot of the events in that game is going to kind of lead up to Xehanort's birth. Like there's the whole thing about
Mm-hmm.
the society of heirs and non-heirs, and then there's the fact that Ephema, who founded Scala, had the Book of Prophecies, and I wonder if in that book it's like kind of alludes to someone like Xehanort being born someday, and obviously we know what Xehanort's supposed to do. I wonder if that's the reason why it was like a big deal to get him out of there, because it's kind of like we know what this child is and we can't have him here because he's a danger. It reminds me of like there was a plot thread in not plot thread, but there was a reference in Kingdom Hearts 1, and I could be wrong, maybe someone correct me, but I have tried to really think back on this. And I've even considered making a video on it. When you go to Atlantica, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you in Kingdom Hearts 1 and King Triton saying about like he's worried about the Keyblade and he doesn't want Sora to use the keyhole and all this stuff. And he's saying that the Keyblade can bring destruction. And he says about how it can either bring like basically salvation, like it can be used to save people, or it could be used to destroy people. And I'm kind of thinking, I don't know if that was supposed to just allude to Riku and Sora's relationship in the game, or if there's something that's happened why King Triton would think like, oh, that could happen. And it kind of makes me wonder if there's been some kind of idea passed down that there's a wielder or some wielders that would destroy everything. And you got Xehanort. and it kind of just makes you think, where did those stories come from? The only place I could think is that it would have come from that scholar that he was born in, and I'm just thinking, like, what stories did they kind of share amongst themselves about prophecies and what the future holds? And because in Key, that entire idea of the prophecies is what basically destroyed them. And I'm
Yep.
just thinking they've got the same book in this scholar, and that scholar is not around by the time, it's still around, I guess, if it evolves into the scholar we see in the later games. But I don't know. I guess
I
I'm
think
trying to
another
figure out.
apocalyptic event is coming, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, like it kind of makes me feel like when they was getting rid of him, it's like there's some reason they don't, like, he needs to not be there. But why is it just him, or is
Can
there
I?
other
Well,
kids?
here would be my guess, right? So Destiny Islands is peculiar to begin with, right? So you tell me Xehanort and Sora grew up on the same islands. Okay, right off the bat, we got to put this thing under the microscope. But number two, if I were to guess, right? So you tell me Xehanort was born in Scala, and then we bring him to Destiny Islands, but he's eventually gonna go back to Scala. So off the bat, if I were to guess off the top of my head, maybe part of their whole plan, this whole secret society, the one that picked up Brain, the one that Ephemer started, the one that made this plan to get Xehanort out of there. What if their whole plan was to get Xehanort to Destiny Islands because it spins on a slower time axis, so they could keep him there for a while, and then they can bring him back into the future?
Yeah, it's well, that's the thing. It's like, I guess we don't know exactly what's in the book of prophecy, but if you go by the nature of it, it's supposed to basically be everything that happens, right? That leads
Mm-hmm.
up until the final battle. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, how much stuff do they know is just gonna, they kind of just know that's fate and we're just gonna let it play out. But then it seems like, I don't know. I guess it's hard to say because we don't know what it is, but I'm kind of just thinking that society's kind of, and I think you've alluded to this before, and that I think that society is kind of around to try and counter fate, because
Yeah.
it seems like it's that I feel like they would be going more off of like Arvis mentality of, let's not do what the master says has to happen. Let's try and do things a different way. Um, Obviously we don't know how that plays out, how that would take place if that's true until we
Mm-hmm.
play the game, but I feel like in some way, I'm just wondering, is Zayn not part of that, or was he the
Hmm.
danger to that? Like, that's what I'm kind of more thinking, because it seemed
Hmm.
like they very urgently went to get him specifically. Obviously, we don't know, we didn't see, but I'm just thinking, like, he seems like the baby that they wanted to prioritize. There was no other kids on Destiny Island. They just took him. So it's like, why him specifically? And we know what he's going to grow up to be. And if they had the Book of Prophecies, and we don't know who that hooded figure was, let's say it was Ephemer or something, or it's like, did he know, like, oh, this is the kid, like, this is the one that's gonna try to summon Kingdom Hearts and all the rest of it, and let's get him out of here. I don't know.
Do you think
I
they
don't
were
know.
able to sense the player in him? And it's something about that tipped them off, or were like, hey, this baby either needs to be protected or separated? Do you think they were able to maybe sense the player in him?
Possibly. That's that. Yeah, yeah, possibly. Like, especially
Because you
because
have to think, right? The darkness is from the Union Cross time. They're gonna hunt the player. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna have a vengeful spirit towards the player. You know. But I
yeah,
don't know.
it's it's a missing link, is what it is. So
Hey, he said it. He said it. He said the thing.
yeah, no, it's wild, because I just, that game, I feel like, sometimes I make memes about it, like, Missing Link's gonna be, greatest game. But honestly, I think like they have the potential. I mean, I hope Kingdom Hearts 4 will be, the better game because it's Kingdom Hearts 4. But
Yeah.
I do think Missing Link has a lot of potential story-wise and lore-wise to do very interesting things, because it really is a game, I like with Union Cross, I felt like I could kind of predict or kind of think about certain things that might happen, because it had characters in there that we know where they end up. So we
Right.
knew, like, okay, they can't all just die here or something, because we know where they end up. But Missing Link doesn't seem to have any people in it, from what I can think of right now, that we can really say we know where they end up. In fact, they all seem like we don't know what happened. Like, we
Yep.
don't really know who's in it except Brain and Sigurd. And
And
I
I
guess
think I think they're all headed to Quadratum. That's how I think that ends. I think you get
yeah,
some. The sickos are gonna cross over.
yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, what do you think Sigurd's thing is? Like, do you think he's gonna be an antagonist, or Is he going to be on like the good side or?
I think Sigurd's on our side, but I think I think he's gonna be that character whose intentions you're constantly questioning.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I
feel
mean?
like I feel like it's kind of like he's gonna almost be like the Guardians version of a Lucio, maybe.
Hmm.
Like or I should say Zigbar, where it's kind of like he's I don't know, like he's kind of a bit it's kind of a bit like dodgy, like what's this guy really up to,
Hmm.
but he's gonna turn out to actually be all right. I'm not sure because I think it's just interesting. I'm not saying the myth with him is necessarily gonna be canon to his character, but I do think it's interesting. It's meant to be like some kind of hero figure, and I just wonder, is that going to play into his character in any way? Maybe he'll be subverted and he'll be like an anti-hero or something.
I
But
think if it follows the myth, he's gonna have a very tragic death. But he'll be regarded as a hero, but he'll have a very tragic death by his own mistake.
well, that's that's yeah, that's gonna be that would be very unfortunate. But it is what it is, I guess. I mean, yeah, I don't know. In terms of like Kingdom Hearts 4 in particular, though, I'm just thinking like in terms of kind of to go back to the whole Luxord thing, like obviously I guess whatever his role is, let's say he pops up in Missing Link or Dark Road, obviously that's gonna be more just an introduction if he is in those games, because obviously whatever he's supposed to be doing is gonna extend over into Kingdom Hearts 4. Um and I guess we'll see what's going on with him and what exactly he's supposed to be getting up to. But it just makes me wonder because there's a lot of new people, I guess, the new characters. You've got Yuzora, you've got the Nameless Star, you've got I'm trying to
I
remember.
mean, there's Sigurd, there's Aegis, there's
Yeah, yeah,
Magia.
right. That's it. So um, this is a bit of a wild idea, but isn't I don't know. This is just me maybe jumping the gun a bit because we've barely seen anything of Quadratum. But I just find it interesting that like Magia and Aegis, they're in the commercial with Yuzora, right? And I've always been trying to figure out what that commercial is exactly. Like I know it's a commercial, but what is it based on? You know what I mean? Because in a video I did where I was talking about Quadratum, it's like I was saying that I feel like it's almost like a not a dream sequence, but it's more based in I don't know if it's entirely real, is what I'm trying to say. Like,
Well,
you got yeah,
go,
go.
I was just gonna say I hope you don't think I'm gonna give you any concrete answers. I'm just gonna confuse you more. But to add to that, you consider the toy box world was a split world, right? Like it
Mhm.
was almost like this pocket world separated from its source world that Buzz and Woody and all of them were kind of trapped in. So it's almost like that whole toy box world we went to wasn't very real at all. It was
That's
almost like this fever dream world.
right, but that's what's interesting though, because obviously we all know that like Theorem Rex has got the parallels with verses, right? And the
100%.
whole tagline with verses was a fantasy based on reality, right? And in the car when Yuzora wakes up, he's like says, is any of this for real or not, right? And it's very interesting because
Hmm.
the fight, I'm pretty convinced that the fight between him and Sora was a dream. I don't think that
I think
was
so
like
too.
yeah, I mean, he literally wakes up after it, and Sora, I would assume in one of these scenes we've seen, I'm guessing in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer when he wakes up, maybe I don't know, but I think he wakes up as well at some point, and that entire encounter was a dream. But what's really interesting to me is that Yuzora, he says like when he meets Sora that he went through these trials and all this kind of stuff. And I've always been of the belief that maybe the commercial we saw was the trials he's talking about, because the most popular theory besides that before was the Reapers game. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's seeming a lot less and less likely considering what Nomura has been saying about the world interview. So
Right.
I think that it's to me, considering it's the only thing we've seen of him engaging in any type of action, I just feel like why did Nomura show us that with him with the Gigases and trying to save the name Star and all that? Like, why did he show us all
Here's
of
the
that
little
stuff?
bit. Here's the little bit that I can offer. As far as I know, chat, you're welcome to correct me on this, and you're also welcome to shoot questions. We are past the 1 hour mark. But if I'm right about this, Versus 13, there was supposed to be a constant dialogue between Noctis and Stella, who that's Yozora and the Nameless Star now, right? Those are those standards. They were only able to communicate with one another through dreams.
Dreams. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yes. And I alluded to this in my video about, is the Nameless Star real, or is she from Yozora's dreams? And it was because of that very same thing. And there's a whole theory I have based on some of the concepts from Versus, and it's wild, like to do with like Stella and Strelitzia and the Nameless Star, because all three of them have got very similar natures in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, I'm not going to go too far into it, but there's a lot of parallels between those three characters in particular. That's very interesting, considering the fact it's Nomura and he, created all these characters. And I kind of wonder in some way, like, what that means for the future of Yozora and the Nameless Star, because what you just said, when I was thinking of that, I just thought, well, the only time we've seen her, like, as from what we can tell as a person, is in that commercial. And I'm wondering, like, what is that commercial? Is that taking place in the dream or whatever? Because in that commercial, Quadradum's empty. There's no one there. There's no people. They're shooting things. They're destroying buildings. And then the buildings don't actually get destroyed. It's like some weird reality distortion thing that comes from the Nameless Star's power. But it's really odd. Like, it's so bizarre, but it doesn't feel real. It feels like a fantasy, but it could be based on reality, but it's not really real. And the other thing you have to bear in mind is it's a commercial for a video game. So it's kind of wild. I don't know. Like, the fact that it's a commercial.
Dude, you want to take that further? Like, this is why I love the toy box world so much, because I've been staring at it for 3 years now, and I'm still trying. It's still 480p, and I've been staring at this thing for years now. But the thing that, like, really, oh God, how am I even going to begin this thought? So, you know how they keep saying Sora looks like Yozora, even though, like, even Goofy, who's supposed to be like the wise idiot, points out, like, yeah, but he looks a lot more like Riku than he does Sora.
Yeah.
What if Yozora's real appearance looks more like Sora? Right?
That's what I've always said.
That
is what I've always said. Yeah.
Because like they mistake, like, oh, you look just like him, and it's like, okay, we the player can see Sora does not look like Yozora. Okay, he's an anime boy. You can give him that. Maybe the T-Rex toy, he just lumps all anime boys together. All anime boys look the same to him. Sure. But Kingdom Hearts, believe it or not, doesn't often talk down to its audience, especially when it comes to solving its series mysteries. The localization might, but the overall narrative not so much. But if we see him as Yozora, we see him as this sort of like Riku Noctis hybrid, but the toy box world sees Yozora like Sora, what does that even begin to mean?
Well, I mean, there was someone when in like my older videos that had commented saying something like, well, maybe Rex, when he's playing the game, obviously he's playing the game from the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't see the beginning. So you could assume Yozora has his original form at the beginning. And if he has his original form at the beginning and then he's played through it and lost his form, then from Rex's perspective, if he does look like Sora originally, it's like, oh, that's why you look like Sora, because that's why he's mistaken him and saying you look like Yozora, because he's played the beginning of the game and he's seen what he looks like. So I remember someone's commenting that on my video, and I've always thought that's actually a very plausible answer for why that, because it never made sense to me. Like, I remember when I first played the game, I was just thinking, what are they talking about? Like, he looks exactly like Riku.
It's Riku. Like even Goofy points to that.
Yeah, but and that was what made me kind of think, okay, the writers are aware of it. Good. Like, but are they not? I don't know. Like, because I've seen some animes where they do things like that, where they see two characters look the same and they don't. And I don't know. I was just thinking maybe it's one of those things, but no, like, it kind of made me think, okay, there could be some actual plot reason as to why this mistake is happening.
I think it has everything. I think it has everything to do with the stolen bodies. I want to chime in with Maria's chat here. It says, I think that Yozora looked like Sora, but he stole someone's body that looks more like Riku's. I think that kind of paints into what you were saying.
And that's the next question is, who is that? the body that we're seeing the Riku look like, who is that guy? Because it's not him. And it's
What
funny
if it's
because
Sigurd?
possibly that's look, it's I feel like whoever it is going to be someone of some significance. So in other words, I feel like it has to be someone like that we like, because we don't recognize them other than we just say, oh, he looks like Riku, right? But
Right.
it's like maybe we've just not seen this person yet. And another thing is that Sigurd having the hood and not showing what he looks like, why do we not see his face straight away? Is that part of the reason why?
This dude was in the Union Cross finale. He was the foot soldier for this new organization. He picked up Brain, knew he would be there. He's the narrator in the Missing Link trailer. He's the narrator in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer. And like you're saying, we don't know what his face looks like. And if he's a completely new character, why hide his face?
Right. I mean, then again,
It could happen. No, you could do it, but
yeah.
I don't
But the thing is, he's becoming more sus as time goes on. Like, initially I didn't think too much of it. I just kind of thought, okay, he's got the hood up, whatever. Maybe it's like an organization similar type of thing. But then it's like now he's got the voiceover with the Kingdom Hearts 4 and even
True.
like the fact that Nomura created like a whole mystery around the fact he was the narrator of the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer. You know what I mean? It's kind of like he wants you to pay attention to that character, or he wants to create some type of mystery there. And
Do you think he was mad that we were all shocked that Zigbar was Lushu? Do you think he was just like, guys, it was right in front of you, and now this time he's like, okay, so Sigurd, the new mystery, he's a mystery. I want you to pay attention to this mystery.
I think well, I'm not sure. But the funny thing is, I mean, if so, he didn't make it easy because
True.
the puzzle we had or whatever at the event, I still don't really get what
I have no idea what happened. For all I know,
like,
it's like somebody won a cereal box competition or something. I have no idea how any of that riddle stuff worked.
someone figured out like the riddle, like to like the message that was on like something to explain who the narrator was, and I was just like, okay, sure, if you say so.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like, hey, I don't speak Japanese, Chief, so whatever you say, I'm just gonna nod my head and say okay.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people obviously corroborated and said it's accurate.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's interesting, and it was figured out quite fast, given when it was like
Kingdom Hearts fans move fast. We didn't get 24 hours before we knew it was Sigurd, which is crazy to me. Mostly last comments, plus the direct parallels of Magia and Donald, Aegis, and Goofy. Why did they decide to take that cut out from the game? I don't necessarily understand the second half of that chat, but there are clear parallels, between Yazora's gang and Sora's gang. I even think you could see the parallels, not just with Versus 13, but you look at Final Fantasy 15, you look at the party members. Like Prompto was the guy with the camera, and cameras was like a side quest, and taking pictures was a side quest in Kingdom Hearts 3. And then you had Ignis, who was the chef, and cooking was a side quest in Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm just saying I kind of see those overlapping tropes between the two.
Remy's Ignis.
Oh my god. I love it. Twilight Blaze, a sage, says, to be fair, everyone says Roxas and Sora look alike. So when they first mentioned that Yuzora and Sora looked alike, I just thought it was another one of those things.
That's kind of what I was like. I was kind of thinking it was just one of those things that's like, it doesn't really mean anything. But then when Goofy pointed out, no, he looks like Riku, and they had a whole little thing about it, I was like, okay. So they have acknowledged that he doesn't really look like him,
Right.
So kind of like, so why is the mistake being made? That seems like there's a reason, there's a discrepancy there, So I don't know. It's hard to say, but I personally, we know that we have not seen Yozora's true form.
Correct.
And so I would imagine it's going to be a shock in some shape or form. That's how I personally see it. Like, I feel like it has to probably be a big deal, whatever it looks like. And I just feel like the biggest thing that would shock people is that he looks like Sora, but he's, especially given the parallels between them, I think that would probably be like the thing that's like, oh wow, like, oh my gosh, like he looks just like him, but he's not him, I guess, But to the
go ahead, keep going.
No, I was gonna say, the comment you read before, what I was saying about Maggie and Aegis, I think the second part of the comment was talking about why did they decide to cut it out from the game. So like, because because the only reason we know Magda and Aegis were the names is because it was in a deleted scene. Because in actual Kingdom Hearts 3,
Oh, that's what he. Okay.
yeah, and I think the reason, and I guess we don't have an actual reason, but I think it's because it didn't really make sense because like um Donald and Goofy, I mean, it's a duck and a dog. So to say they're Magi and Aegis, how does that really work when Magi and Aegis are humans? I think it just didn't really add up in terms of consistency. I think that's why it was cut from the game personally. I mean, it could have been another reason, but I think that's the honest reason. I don't think it was necessarily anything other than that. But I'm not sure.
No, I think that could be right on the money. It could be something along those lines. Let me know what you think of this. Twilight Blaze says the not Yozora body might be the Master of Masters. He has only one blue eye. So maybe
Yeah.
Yozora's body might actually be the Master's body.
Yeah, I've right. So, would you mean like the body that he's in right now? Like
Yeah,
the
I think that's what what Twilight's getting
yeah,
at
yeah.
is that the body he's in right now is actually the Master's body.
I've heard people say that like, and I think that's possible as well. I think it's plausible. It Yeah, I don't know. I think it could work. I mean, it would kind of imply the monster doesn't have a body, but something that I've kind of wondered, and actually I'd be interested to know what you think.
Sure,
Do you think the master? Okay, so the whole theory about him being light and stuff like that,
of
and
course.
um, him being like that would mean he's like kind of the counter to darkness. And if we look at what darkness looks like, darkness doesn't start off with a form; it's formless.
Mhm.
So if the master is meant to be kind of like the opposite of that, is he formless? You know what I mean? Or
I
like
personally would love it.
if he like even if he does have a body, is it actually his body or is it a form that he has to take, just like what the darknesses have to do? Because if we're saying he's light and the darknesses are this misty cloud thing and they don't have a form until they take one, if he's supposed to be the embodiment of light, again, we don't know that for a fact, but if we're going with that
Right.
idea, then I would think like, wouldn't that maybe make him less like he would actually be a person? I don't know. Um, I mean, I'm not sure, but I just remember him saying to Luciu in Unicross about how the darkness looked like monsters and stuff like that. And then, it's kind of like, okay, but what did your people look like? And he said that the darkness didn't look like them. So I'm not really sure what that means. Because he says, are you saying that? I can't remember the exact dialogue, but Luciu and him have a talk about it, and I just remember it being very vague about what their appearances were. Um, so it just has me wondering, like, does he actually have a physical form originally or not? And if he does, or even if he didn't and he took a form, it could be still the one that Yozora has. Um, but I do think whoever it is though, that Yozora is in that body, like whoever's body that is that it belongs to originally, that's going to be. I feel like there's like a double twist going on there. Like when we find out who that body originally belongs to, it's going to be like, oh, okay, interesting. And then when we find out what Yozora originally looks like, it's going to be like, oh, okay, like it's going to be potentially shocking on both ends. I think.
I think that's what Kingdom Hearts is going for. Because I think Kingdom Hearts moments are at their best when there is an element of shocking to them. Because then you have that shock moment of like, wait, he's that or he's him? Like, Terra's the Guardian? What do you mean? And they end up on YouTube, and some schmuck like me pointed it out like 5 years ago, and you're like, oh, it made perfect sense. Oh, wow, that's amazing. And then you see, Zigbar take off his hood, now he's Luciu, and you're like, wait, what? And then you go back to the first scene he's in Kingdom Hearts 3, and you're like, oh, he showed his entire hand. Like, I think that's when Kingdom Hearts is at its best. Because also, like, they want you to go back and keep playing the old games. They don't want the old games to die, and I get that. Any sort of work, you want it to last through the ages. So if you can make the old games fresh by filling in those blanks so that now when I play Birth by Sleep, I don't unsee Luciu, And when I play Kingdom Hearts 2 and bump into Luxord, all I see is Yozora's driver. I think those sorts of moments and those sorts of deliveries are exactly what the series is going for. I think they've realized that's a real strength to their narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a question here from Jan Van S, and I'm wondering, it's a very general question for, I guess, Kingdom Hearts, but they want to know what's in the box. What is your running theory right now? If you had to guess what's in that black box, what are you saying?
I don't know.
That's a good answer.
I have never ever been able to sit down and say, I really don't know. And you want me to be really honest with you? Part of the reason I
Yes.
don't feel confident saying anything is because I feel like the current answer is maybe I don't know if there's actually a tangible solid idea yet of what's in there. Like I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, does Nomura even know what's in there yet, or is he gonna just like is he gonna
He's
be like, okay,
yeah.
we're gonna let's figure this out by missing. Okay, we got missing link. What cannot for? Okay, we should probably figure out what's in the box by now. Okay, let's put I don't know, let's put something in there. I mean, I think one of your previous podcasts I was watching, and I think I don't know if it was you or someone else who mentioned it, but it was someone who brought up the idea of the box like actually being used to put something in it rather than for something to come out. And I really like that idea. Like
Yeah,
I
that it's a
just because
sealing, like it's gonna seal something.
yeah, just because I mean it kind of is like okay, when he tells Lucius in the box, it's like what does he say to him? And it's like when he's like, but why? I mean, if he says there's nothing in there, and then Lucy's like, but why? And he's like, you'll see. I guess that could work.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to fill in that blank. Like whatever it is, it kind of has to fill that blank so that Lucy's reaction makes sense.
Makes sense. Like, well, like it's either something gross, it's either like why, or something that makes no sense. Like it's empty, and you're gonna make me carry this thing all around. And I don't. The whole sealing the demon in the jar trope is all over like Eastern media. Like
Mhm.
sealing techniques and sealing jutsus and sealing spells. Like that is all over that kind of stuff. So I could see it that they open up that box and they're gonna try and seal maybe
But
reality itself inside of the box. Who
mm,
knows?
but then again, what is it I said that the box contains hope?
Yes,
So that kind of implies there's something in there. But then but the thing is, the people saying that don't actually know. They're just saying that's what they've heard is
that's
in
what
there.
they've heard. And look, it could be the villain's hope for all you know. Whoever's
Right.
pulling that string. Like, just because it's hope doesn't mean it's the kind of hope you want. I do want to bring up a comment from Twilight Plays that corrects something we were talking about earlier. He says, I used to think Master of Masters was a being without a body, but then he revealed his plan to Luciu, which involves him sealing one of the deadly sin darknesses into himself, which he wouldn't be able to do without a body.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I mean,
Lady, oh, go ahead.
no, to be honest, personally, I do think it's more likely he probably does have some kind of. I mean, I at least prefer the idea he has a physical form.
I do too.
Um,
Even though I would
but
also love the formless, I want a really cool looking character under that hood.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really entirely like the idea of the formless because I just kind of can't imagine it looking as like too cool of it. Like, and I don't really want it to just be like a white misty version of the darkness. Like that's kind of boring, So it's like, what else could it be? Like a beam of light or a ball or something? Just I can't seems But at the same time, I mean, I mostly raised it just because it was something I thought, and I think, eh, it could considering the darkness is like that, it could be that. But personally, if it was up to me, I would rather it was he actually had a physical form. So personally, I'm all for. I agree. I think it would make sense if he needs to be possessed, um, for him to have a physical form.
and
But then again,
knowing
I
it,
don't know.
yeah.
That could be like he could be on his end of things just being dishonest though. I don't know.
That's the other thing, and this is part of what makes the master so fun. It's like, is he just a bullshitter? Like, is he just a really good bullshitter? And like, he doesn't plan to sacrifice himself. He'd rather just do the six foretellers and Sora. So now that all the powerful wielders are out of his way, could very easily be that, right? But you never know. Lady Lucina comments, Master of Masters is going to destroy all of time and space, LMAO. I love this comment because I actually think, Lady Lucina, you're not far off. Here's my crazy prediction. I think the Master of Masters is trying to escape the world of light and dark. I think the laws of light and dark are binding. I think the world is doomed to be on this repeating cycle of build itself up, tear itself down, the apocalyptic event, Ragnarok, however you want to do it. I think the Master of Masters has seen this cycle play over and over and over again. And he's saying, so long as there's a world of light and darkness, there's always going to be these clashes. There's always going to be these corrections and imbalances. What we need to do is create a world that is without that. And I think that's what Unreality is all about. I think that's what the world of fiction is all about, is a way to escape all of that. And I have to wonder if the Master's plan is to take reality and almost like let unreality absorb it, right? Like when he puts the heart over the moon at the end of the Kingdom Hearts 3 secret ending, I think that's almost his way of being like, I'm gonna pull Kingdom Hearts into this fictional world. Like, I'm gonna take this world and I'm gonna merge it with that other world. And now I can rise above the constraints of light and darkness, and I don't have to worry about this ever-repeating cycle anymore. That's just my random prediction.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, like, okay, so for a while I've had an idea, but I've never been able to tie it to anything, which is what would happen if Kingdom Hearts didn't exist, like to the Kingdom Hearts reality? What would that do? And why would someone do that? Like, and for the longest time I was kind of thinking, I'm not really sure, would the master do something like that? I don't know. And none of what he's saying really seems to necessarily allude to that. But with what you're saying, it's like it's kind of re-inspiring that, because I'm just kind of thinking Xehanort's ambition was to basically try to use it to try and, in a sense, kind of control it and use it to his own ends. And I feel like unless Nomura just wants to literally do a repeat of the Dark Seeker saga, the Master's plans can't be that. It has to be something that's like different, but it has to be, in a way, it has to be a step up from Xehanort, right? Like it has to be worse. And I'm thinking, what would be worse than what Xehanort was doing? And I guess rather than trying to control Kingdom Hearts, just get rid of it, destroy it, or something along those lines. And it leads into what you're saying. If it's true, and maybe unreality is his way of doing that, because I would assume in the Kingdom Hearts reality, maybe he's not able to do that because of the rules of the universe there or whatever. But if there's something in that unreality, maybe there's something there that he could utilize, or there's something about the nature of that reality where he can use that to his advantage, like you're saying, to kind of get rid of it in some type of way. It sounds crazy, but to be honest, we all know what series we're dealing with here. So.
Exactly. Nothing is off the table. But just to paint into what you're saying, like, oh, well, what would his reason for that wanted to be? Well, look at Sora. Look what Sora had to do to bring his friends back from the dead. He had to give it all up. He broke the nature taboo, and he got banished to unreality. If the Master of Masters has friends or family or loved ones he wants to bring back, the normal reality, the Kingdom Hearts world, won't allow him to do that. And if it does allow him to do that, it's only going to bury him into a pit. So maybe he's trying to make this cross into unreality so that he can just use the power of waking willy-nilly with no consequence. Right? Because the power of waking is a relatively new thing that has been shoved down our throats, like in the last couple entries. And I have to believe it doesn't start and stop at Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, they really drove Power of Waking into your brain. I don't think it starts and stops as Sora's Kingdom Hearts 3 arc. I think the Power of Waking is going to go even further. And if you take Xehanort in mind and some of the things he said, it's possible the Power of Waking even goes backward as much as it goes forward.
Yeah, because how did the Master end up in unreality? I mean, we don't know. Maybe he can just somehow cross there. But from what was said in Union Cross, it was like he didn't know about it originally, and then he kind of found out about it later on.
Right.
So what did he, I guess, how did he find out about it? And then did he find out at the same time the only way to go over there is you need to break a nature taboo or whatever? I don't know. But it makes me wonder,
he probably hates all these freaking rules, man.
Yeah, because he said, like, he told I think it was Ira about, like, I'm gonna vanish, dim, fate. So he knew he was going to be gone.
Yep.
And just like what happened with Sora didn't just go like immediately. He was around for a bit and then he literally vanished. This is also the reason why people were saying that the Master is Sora and blah blah. But but it's funny though, because I do think that potentially is like a kind of similar thing where he maybe did abuse the Power Awakening or something and ended up there. I don't think that necessarily means he's Sora. But
no, but I'm with you. It makes me think, like, did he like screw up, or was it intentional? Could be either one. He had to really use the power of waking for something, and it kind of cost him. And it makes me wonder, like, did he use the power of waking to bring in the nightmare? You know how, like, they found a nightmare after his disappearance? Like, did he use the power of waking to bring that into Daybreak Town? Because it was a world, that was mostly absent of conflict. They had their duties, they had their responsibilities, but it was pretty absent of conflict. And you know, I don't think he vanished him, faded in the sense that like, oh, he just got up and left. I think it may you may be onto something. It very well could be the consequence of his actions. He could have misused the power of waking.
Because the way he said it was like it was beyond his control.
Yes.
Like it was like it's just it has to happen. Like it's just like he doesn't really have. But that's the funny thing. Then we see him meet Xehanort, and that's later on. So he's still there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff, man. I got a couple black box predictions here. Mostly last as the data from Daybreak Town. That's my guess. I like that. I guess like maybe there's a hard. It'd be funny if there's like a hard drive in there. That's interesting. The child says the owl is in the box, and that is a. Well, that is
I'll keep seeing the comment about the owl. And I'm
the
just
fucking owl. We did when the missing
definitely
trinket.
an inside. This is definitely a lodge joke.
It's an inside lodge joke. When Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer dropped and the Missing Link trailer dropped, I was going crazy. I was like a crackhead. I was pausing frame by frame, like, what's here? What's there? We found an owl on a poster in Missing Link, and we just started Googling, well, what does an owl mean in similar? What is that? What mythologically? What, just going down that rabbit hole, all about this owl on a poster. And
then again, there's Odin and Odin's, never mind.
You really want to ignite that? Because we'll fall back down. Maria says, I think there's nothing in the box, and the Master of Masters is just using it as bait to hide his real plans. That or unrealities in there. I like both of those. There's so much they could do with this box that I would like. I feel like it would be really hard for them to screw it up. Like, they could actually put nothing in the box, and I'd be like, Master of Masters strikes again. I
definitely think it's going to have there's going to be something that happens with it. It's just not really sure what. But I genuinely don't like Demix and the black box. I just haven't. I don't really know. I don't ever foresee myself doing a black box theory. I just can't figure it out. Like
the only black box theory I was able to do was for me to be like, hey, look. So you remember when they said what's in the box is hope? Well, in Greek mythology, that's what they said when Pandora's box is opened. Hope is the only thing that stays inside.
Left. Isn't it? It's yeah. Okay.
So that's all I was able to really bring to the table. Other than that, I would really just be guessing. It's another one of those things where it's like we only really have breadcrumbs in there, but who knows? Honestly, part of me, what I would love if Avo was in there, because then that means all of them did reunite in the graveyard.
No. Well, that's an L for Avo because especially since Zigba was standing right over her, like, I guess she didn't make it after all.
You're right, no, what a flex. What a flex.
She didn't make it. It's like, where is she? It's just like, hope you like long stories.
One of my favorite lines, by the way. Twilight Blaze says, how would you guys feel if Kingdom Hearts the Moon is literally just a doorway out of Sora's reality, and his world is literally just the Kingdom Hearts video game in Yozora's world / the in-universe real world? How I would feel about that, I don't know. I feel like execution is just as important as the idea itself. But I like the idea that it all comes down to a door. Just because, like in Kingdom Hearts 1, it's all about you, boy. You are the one who will open the door. Mm-hmm. But Kingdom Hearts 1 ended with them closing the door and sealing it. So what is this door that Sora is going to open? And I'd love it if say Kingdom Hearts Moon was the door. I think that could work. Where it leads, though, I don't know, or I don't know what would work. But I do like the idea that Kingdom Hearts could be the door that Sora was always meant to open. I feel like that could bring things full circle.
Do you? I don't want to say anything more, but I'll just to quickly answer that. I'll say that I'm okay with the door thing. I'm not too fond of the idea of Kingdom Hearts necessarily being a video game reality in Zora's world, because I prefer the idea that they're just both real to themselves. And I feel like
I like that too.
One of the Mora's answers recently about Quadratum kind of confirms that it's kind of more like to each of them, they are real. I mean, I know we've got the video game commercial of Virum Rex, but I feel like that was made by someone to depict the events of his actual reality. Okay. So rather, it's not that Yozora is a video game character like originally. It's just that someone made a video game based off of him. If you get what I'm saying, like
yes,
but he's an actual. It's just like if let's say for example we go to Unreality and there is a Kingdom Hearts game, it's not that the Kingdom Hearts reality is a video game reality. It's just that someone made a video game about Kingdom Hearts. I don't know. Maybe someone's having
No, I
dreams
think you're kind of getting into the whole like realm of ideas sort of thing. Yeah.
And I really would like that if that's what it was. If the video game thing did happen, it was more someone's had dreams about this other world and that inspired them to make something, and it just so happens that a character from that video game actually shows up in their real world, and I wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, you're actually real. Just like when Sora meets Zora, and he's like, oh, you are real. It's like, so it's that same kind of thing. Like he's probably thinking, oh, you're from a video game, but then you're actually a tangible person all of a sudden. How did that happen?
Yeah. How do we get from point A to point B? No, that's no, I would really like that. I'm with you. Like, I don't like the idea that one world would be like just a video game world. I do like the idea, like you're saying, like these characters, the world has to be real to them. To them, it has to be real, video game or not. But yeah, no, I think it could totally work. I think the whole door aspect of things could work, but I hope, like you're saying, they don't lean too hard into the video game, like the video game world direction.
Maybe they could make it work, because honestly, I said I didn't want the player to be someone else. I actually think I said that the last time I was on your podcast, and I was saying like I hope the players just like isn't something. But then the Xehanort thing happened. I was like, damn, that's actually right. Like it's
well,
so I don't know, like,
especially when it starts to make sense. Like we were talking about earlier in the episode.
I liked it basically straight away, because I just the way they did it, it was. It's a lot of stuff comes down to execution. You can think, I don't like the idea, but I don't know. They might make it hit different. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? They won me over with it. And to be honest, Kingdom Hearts does have a history of typically doing that. So it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Ronnie Jones says the card Luxord gave might be the key to come back. Maybe. I don't know how much I like that, because then it's just like, oh, so Sora just needs to reach in his pocket, pull out this card, and he's back home.
Or maybe they don't mean it that simply. Maybe they just mean like it plays, like it factors in.
It's part of the exactly. Okay, no. If it's just part of the chain of events that leads him to get back, I would like that. I want it to be more than that, though. I want it to be more than that. Like I want that card to come into play and for it to say something about Luxord. Like maybe it foils something the Master wanted to do, right? And now by that wild card specifically foiling the Master, you now go, oh, Luxord knows about the Master. And it's not just a matter of like, oh, Luxord wants to help Sora get home. No, that wild card specifically helps with something that has to do with the Master or Sigurd or Lushu or someone that makes us go, oh, Luxord's clued in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And also it makes it more selfish, more of like his agenda rather than everything just being about Sora.
Right.
Just something that sometimes I'm just like, these characters have their own life. Like
yeah, exactly. Can they give them their own slice of the pie, their own motivations. Mostly Last does ask, any Dark Road predictions? I'll let you lead on that one.
His friends die. I made a video about it. I made one Dark Road like proper theory. Is the last one I did, and I don't have anything more to say because I feel like I practically said most of the things I'm thinking in that video, and I've not had any new thoughts since. Right. And to be honest, like I just think basically his classmates are probably going to get fall to darkness or get possessed by darkness, and he's going to have to take them out. Maybe Ericus is going to have to help him take them out. That's why he's all solemn in the graveyard, and he's like, "Oh, And then
what happened? Was it your fault? It's not your fault. Yeah. You had to strike them down. Yeah, I get that.
And like in that video, I really broke down like because just in the 3 episodes we got, there's actually a lot of foreshadowing in there. Like I mean, a lot. I didn't even put all in my video, and like there's so much lines of dialogue that literally allude to the idea of darkness taking over people that they know, and they have to do something. Like there's an entire conversation that Ericus and Xehanort have about like, what would you do if darkness burrows so deep into someone that you don't even know it's there? And Ericus is like, that's a scary thought. And, one day we might have to decide, like, could we turn our keyblades on someone if they fell to darkness? Like it's so on the nose, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, there's too much other things going on throughout just those first 3 episodes that foreshadows they're going to have to do something. Like when Xehanort walks through the dark corridor, when he's on his way to Scala, it's like there's like these 4 different, this isn't confirmed, but this was just an observation I made. when he's walking through the dark corridor, it seems like there's 4 different darknesses that go through him. And in the text, he says that basically he felt different emotions, right? And the emotions were hatred, jealousy, and doubt, but they came from people that he had yet to meet. And I'm pretty certain those people he had yet to meet at that moment are his classmates. So those people are going to feel hatred, jealousy, and doubt towards him. They're going to basically in some shape fall to darkness, become possessed by it. And that's what's going to happen. And I linked it to the 4 darknesses that were trapped in Union Cross. I don't know if necessarily it is, but he's got 4 classmates, there's 4 graves, and there's 4 darknesses. So I think it's
that's interesting.
Possible. And you literally made a video about the rule of 4. So it even ties into that.
Yeah, it would tie it because I think 4 is the new kid in town. We've had 3, we've had 7, we had 13. I think 4 is the new kid in town. I love that. I think you're on the money. I'm with you. There's been tons of foreshadowing in those first few episodes, and that's why I have one prediction when it comes to Dark Road. Most know what it is. Ragnarok is coming, baby. It's coming back. We had the apocalypse of Union Cross. We're gonna get. I really think we're gonna get a whole other one, and it's gonna lead to Xehanort going rogue. That would be my Dark Road prediction.
There has to be an explanation for why there's no, like, where did all those wielders go, right? Like, I mean, they're not around, so there has to be. And in that scene, there's like so much graves. I mean, there's the 4 that he has the flowers by, but there's a bunch of other ones as well.
Right. You know? Exactly. Could not agree more. Couldn't have said it better myself. Big Pika TTV says, when do you think we'll know what's in the black box? I'm gonna go so far as to say Kingdom Hearts 5 or 6. I think they play that one really close to the chest. What do you think? You think we know in 4?
I really don't know, because I just don't know. When it comes to the black box, I really don't really have a solid idea. So I can't really gauge it. I feel like, I mean, I wouldn't be entirely shocked, like, if it was in Kingdom Hearts 4, but at the same time, I could see it stretching up. It's hard to say because I don't really know what Kingdom Hearts 4, like, I don't really know how much it's going to center around, because now that I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's tough. It's tough. Jan Van S, who, let's take a moment, who earlier in today's episode, Jan became the newest Sage of the Lodge. So, Jan, thank you very much for that. Let's get on to your message here. The mirror will turn Xehanort bald, and that's why old Xehanort asked the mirror, do you remember me? Oh, God. You know, honestly, I don't know what, like, I really would love to. I don't even want to meet Tetsuya Nomura. I want to be a fly on the wall for when he's talking to someone he trusts. And I want to know, like, when he says these things, like, oh yeah, you're going to learn some things, you know, like how Xehanort went bald. Like, is he trolling or is he speaking like, is he trying to be serious? I don't know. The man just fascinates me with answers like that.
I don't know, man. Sometimes I feel like Nomura's low-key trolling, but it's like one of those like really deadpan, and because it's mostly you're reading in text, it's like you don't really, I don't know, because there's some things he says and it's just like I don't know where he's going with it.
Yeah, me neither. Needless to say, guys, I'm not gonna be able to get to all of these. There's a ton of them in here, and we are coming up on 2 hours. But let's go to Maria's message here. I have something to point out. Sora said to Yuzora in Remind, "There's something I have to ask you." What the hell did Sora have to ask Yuzora? Yeah, did he never? Wait. Huh.
Wait, did he?
Did he? Hold on. We're gonna look into this. We're gonna look into this.
Time to dive.
We're gonna dive live. A live dive. Here we go.
Deep dive Yuzora.
Okay.
Sorry,
okay. How we doing? We good? It looks like we're good on the screen. All right. Let's get to the point where they clash. They meet up. Okay. Let's listen to this back.
Yeah. You're Yuzora, right?
How do you know that? Who are you?
I'm Sora. And actually, there's something I have to ask you.
Yeah, no, he does say, and actually, there's something I have to ask you.
Sora?
Then Yuzora interrupts
Sora?
him.
Huh? You know who I am?
Sure. I've heard of you.
Damn.
If you're here,
I never.
then this
That's
can't...
crazy. The amount of times I have made videos about that flipping interaction, I've never.
Never actually like asked. I mean, he could. This could be it here. If you're here, then this can't be the real world, can it? But I don't think that's it, right? I feel like what he had to ask him was probably something the Nameless Star told him. But I guess you could say that if you're here, this can't be the real world, can it? Maybe that's it? But I don't know. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I'm wondering if it's related to what something the Nameless Star said. Well, I don't. The Nameless Star. The only thing is, we know everything the Nameless Star said to him, except the only thing we didn't know at first was the name she whispered. But now we know it's Yuzora. So
Correct.
the only admitted detail was just the name, and we know what that is. So everything else, we heard what she said.
That's
So
true.
If I don't know if it was something she said. I think it might be just something he's specifically curious about. I don't know.
Well, I mean, listen, I don't know is a more than acceptable answer.
I didn't even know about it. I didn't even think about it until just now. So
No, me neither. I'll have to sit on that one for a bit. Abdul says, would you guys like to see concepts from the secret movies being fully realized, like Roxas have the Eye of Darkness, for example? Yeah, I would, but I just don't think it's gonna happen. I feel like the secret movies always give you a look into the future, but it's never like a full accurate like portrayal. I don't know. I mean, save for the Birth by Sleep secret movie from Kingdom Hearts 2. That was pretty spot on. But like, you look at the Kingdom Hearts 3 secret movie, Sora waking up in Quadratum that way, like that's not really how it happened, you know?
yeah. There's something hold on, there's kind of interesting, like there's I think discussion going on about Subject X being Scold and Xehanort's mom, and their kind of similar appearance and stuff, which I've always seen discussion about. I mean, I am firmly in the camp of the idea Subject X is Scold, and I think that
I'm in on that too, but Pajama Let's Play kind of fucked my brain on that a little bit. Because she was like, no, Skuld is Xehanort's mom. She was like, just look at it. And I'm like,
but
yeah, that does look like Skuld.
Yeah, but they have different eye colors. A lot of people...
Is it different eye colors?
Yeah, she has the... I think she has the same eye color as Xehanort. I think they have the silver eyes. And I can't remember right now what Skuld's eye color is, but they're not the same color. So that's... I mean, it's... Look, to be fair, you could say, okay, eye colors change or something, but...
No, but eye colors are pretty deliberate in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I don't think... And in my mind, like, because there was lots of people saying that for obvious reasons, because she does look
like Skuld.
Yeah, like she literally does look like a some people say it's just because they were lazy with the assets, which me personally, I'm thinking it's very possible, but I do think the thing
no,
is
I just want to say you're 100% right. I just looked at that. It's two very different eye colors.
Yeah,
you're 100% right.
Yeah, I don't think it's her. And also, in terms of like just twists, it would be a way more insane reveal for Skull to be Xehanort's mom than for her to be Subject X, at least in my opinion. Like, I feel like that's something they should not have shown us just offhandedly like that, if that's true. Because like her being Subject X is something we all pretty much kind of figured out, if that is the case.
We've gotten to a point, I don't even want her to be Subject X anymore. Like, all the fun's been taken out of it.
Yeah, it's the thing is as well is, I don't know, there's too much, all the details around it just add up too much with her. Like the age being 15 adds up with her. Like the hair color, whether it's black or dark, the dark hair adds up. I know we don't know what others, and I've mentioned this to people, we don't know what others' hair color is, to be fair. So I know that sometimes that's a possibility, because there was the old theory of Streletsy, but we know no, because she has dark hair. Exactly. So the only other real possibility is Ava. If there was one, the problem with the other thing though is that she's too old, basically, because I mean, I don't know if basically like there's a time skip that happens in Union Cross, where it's like when Ava is talking to, I believe it's Brain, in that particular moment, and I remember like seeing this because it was one of those things I forgot until I was rewatching it. But like in that scene, there's like a 4-year time skip between when Ava's talking to Brain on the hill and gives him like the Book of Prophecies and stuff, and when Union Cross happens. So for Ava would have to be 11 years old during the time of like basically every time we see that, she'd have to be 11 for that to be possible.
For that to be valid,
like a little kid. You know, it's just like there's no way. Like Arthur was 11 years old and in the like. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think so.
No,
So
she doesn't come off as 11. 11
yeah,
is a bit like Sora was like 10, 11 when the series started. That's not that. Ava's way too mature
yeah.
and
So
like
to me,
tactical to be 11.
yeah. So to me, that the thing is, that's an easy thing to miss though, because like that time skip thing, even though we all maybe saw it in Union Cross, it's one of those details I think you because I forgot about it, and then I was rewatching certain stuff. And I was like, oh wait, there's a time skip here. So
Mhm.
that made me think, oh, there's definitely no way she is subject X because like she can't be. She must be around like at least 20 something or something like that. By the time Union Cross would be happening, or 19 or something along those lines.
Something
So
closer to that than 11, I would say. I think
yeah.
you're right on the money with that. Let's give a special shout out to my man Treehouse coming in with a $5 super chat. Says, gotta ask you, if we get Star Wars and Kingdom Hearts, did y'all know that Anakin Skywalker's eyes change colors once he turns to the dark side? I think that's it, man. I think our whole Skuld and the Xehanort's mom thing's been ruined now.
They turn to the dark side. Well, to be fair, Kingdom Hearts it's inspired by Star Wars, and they do the same thing.
Anakin gets Norded. He definitely gets Norded.
All dark side users do. That's the Sith eyes. Like if you get corrupted by the dark side, you have those like kind of orangey type
Yellow
of
eyes. Yeah.
So the yellow kind of eyes, like so, and that's literally the same thing in Kingdom Hearts. Like you get corrupted by darkness enough, you will probably have those eyes. So same kind of thing, really.
Yeah.
So to be honest, To be honest, they both share that similarity.
Absolutely. 100%. Twilight Blaze says, which of the 5 classmates do you guys think will survive? Because we only see 4 graves. And if you don't think one of them survives, what happens to that 5th person? So I think, I don't know what the right way to say her name is. I think it's Vorsh is technically, I don't know. The little girl, I think she survives. I think her name is Vorsh or something. It's either Vorsh or Vor. I don't know.
Vor.
It's Vor?
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I just know it's spelled VOR. I don't know if there's like a specific pronunciation, but
let's just go with Vor. So Vor, I think, there were a lot of rumors about Ava being Kyrie's grandmother. I think that's still viable, but I actually think it's possible Vor is going to survive and she'll go on to be Kyrie's grandmother, because now that gives you an additional connection between Xehanort and Kyrie. Right? Now, maybe that's why Apprentice Xehanort was able to seek out Kyrie a little bit, because she's related to a former classmate of his. Again, kind of in the same way Marluxia and Larxene had a way to be drawn to one another. Maybe now this explains why Xehanort and Kyrie seem to have this consistent overlap. That would be my prediction. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I've been pushing the Kyrie's grandmother other things, so
I think it's very possible and compatible.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
I think personally, like I'm more of the believer of Ava for a number of reasons, but I mean, even with the point you made, I think even that still works with Ava, because Ava was connected with the dandelions directly, and all of those dandelions are associated with the player who is still associated with Xehanort.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still think it can track in that way. The only thing about the other thing that I feel like kind of is what maybe sometimes for me makes me not like the idea is just the fact it's kind of like, will she kind of be at this point just kind of, because I kind of want to see Ava as Ava, like how we've seen her, right? But at the same time, I could kind of see Nomura doing something where he's just like, no, like you're an old lady now, and you're just gonna have to deal with it, and you're not getting your Ava, badass fight sequence that you wanted. She's an old lady, and that's what happens. Life happens, and she moved on. I don't know. I feel like it would maybe that's. I feel like it's a bit of a mature kind of thing, a take on a character rather than doing the. But there's other reasons as well, like Ava in terms of how her role is and what she looks like, and all of that kind of stuff ties quite closely to Kyrie.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of believed that Ava was the original foreteller, and that's I'm not gonna go into that, but like I've always kind of thought that when Nomura conceived of that time and to make a story around it, I feel like Ava was one of the first characters he created, because I feel like Kyrie's grandmother was the only character in the present day that had anything in relation to that time, like outright, because she speaks about that time through her story, and she's saying that story. And when Union Cross begins, it begins with Kyrie's grandmother telling that story. And the only character who seems to have such a direct, obvious connection to Kyrie is Ava, you know. And then there's also the fact that like Ava and that entire name, it's like it translates to grandmother.
Yep.
I just feel like it's just.
Can I give you one more? Can I give you one more?
Yeah.
This I would love. If Ava's hair is blonde, that explains Nominee.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
Ava's Kyrie's grandmother and her hair is blonde, suddenly we have a bit of an explanation for Nominee's hair.
Yeah. I feel like it's. I don't know.
What if Ava looks a lot like Nominee? You know, I don't know.
That actually, yeah, I mean, it's just like with the Ventus thing and Broxus, right?
Yes.
So I think that tracks. I think that could definitely be. That could definitely be it. I think my thing with Vor is, I just keep thinking she's just one of the 4 that's gonna die. So I'm just convinced she's gonna just.
I mean, the series has killed plenty of children before, dude. I'm sure they'll do it again.
She seems like that character that's like, oh yeah, I'm just so you know, I'm nice, and it's like, no, you're gonna go now. Like,
you're going to die brutally, and it won't be fun.
But also because of my idea about them falling to darkness, her character in particular, I feel like would be really heart-wrenching to make her fall to darkness and just messed up, like
to see a child like that.
Yeah, I'd feel like and she, I feel like I don't know how they're gonna do it, but I really feel like they could do that in a way that's really interesting and kind of nuanced, where, you know, like with the Queen of Hearts, because they've already foreshadowed it. The Queen of Hearts has like the darkness with her, but she doesn't think there's anything possessing her. Xehanort asks her, and she just thinks no, like she's just doing what she wants. And it'd be very interesting if the same thing happened with his classmates, where they just think they're just doing what they want to do, but it's actually darkness that's kind of controlling them, and they can't see that. And that's kind of tragic, because it's like, it's not even that they're just mindlessly evil. They're doing what they think is right, but they're corrupted, you know, and they've just got to die for it.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think, you know, Kingdom Hearts is at its best when it leans into tragedy. And with Vor, they have a very unique opportunity to really, really get at your gut and show you, like, the looming threat of darkness doesn't play favorites. It doesn't care if you're a kid. It doesn't care if you're innocent. It doesn't care. You know, that's the real threat you're being faced with, is it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter how good you are, how young you are, how cute you are, that stuff doesn't matter to the darkness. I think that's a terrifying prospect that I think would hit home. We are coming up on a couple hours. This is going to actually end up being the longest podcast in the show's history. But I can't in good faith end this without the conversation happening in the chat right now. They managed to bring up Zigbar was never recompleted, which would mean that isn't Xehanort still in him? Isn't he still kind of half Xehanort?
Well, he in the ending he still has the eye, right? Like his eyes, the same eye that when he's like, I'm already half Xehanort. And
he's that same eye is still glowing yellow.
He still got it. So, well, it's still something that is still there. It's like it's a little bit like, it reminds me a little bit of like the Horcrux thing in Harry Potter. You know, it's like if it's not all destroyed, if they're not all gone, then it's like the part of Voldemort still. You know, I feel like it's like
keep coming.
Yeah, it's like there's a part of him that still lives, and it's like, you know, I'm just seeing maybe it's like that. You know, if there's a part of him that still lives somewhere, then there's always a chance that he could just come back somehow.
You know, it's funny. You just like completely off topic, but you've completely shown me not only how Voldemort and Xehanort are similar, but how Voldemort and Sephiroth are really similar. Don't know if you're an FF7 guy.
Yeah.
But shit, like that's like note for note what Sephiroth is.
Yeah, part of Cloud, never a memory.
I'll never be just a memory. But all right, we're at the 2-hour mark here. I think it's time for us to wrap this up. But before we do, next gen, was there anything else you wanted to say? Anything else you wanted to touch on? And you know, just one last pitch where the people could find you, and yeah, we'll put a bow on this.
No, we've spent a good amount of time talking. I mean, other than I appreciate being here in the lodge again. Obviously, I mean, everyone coming, giving their takes on different things. Like, I really do enjoy the live interaction. I really do. Like, I think it's fun to see people saying things like in real time and stuff. Because for me, one of my favorite things is reading comments. So like, I really enjoy reading different people's ideas on stuff and seeing all the different ideas and wild stuff people come up with. Because sometimes people will say stuff and it's like, wow, like literally what happened a number of times a day. Like, you know, some observations that even though we sit here and we make this content, we do this stuff like think about it all day and stuff. It's like there's still stuff we miss, and someone in the audience will just point it out. And
Dude.
I really do enjoy that. Like, I think that it's a real quite like fun part of doing all this stuff and interacting. But other than that, no, I don't have any crazy theories. I mean, I'll try and for anyone who's watches my channel, I'll try and get some more theories out. I'm actually hoping to do a lot more stuff in July. I have a bunch of videos that I need to make. They're not all going to be Kingdom Hearts, but you know, because I'm trying to cover other things as well. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, other than that, there's nothing really more for me to say. My channel's Next Gen Novelist. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I appreciate everyone for coming and for listening to me talk.
Well, listen, unless you're new here, you guys know I can't sing Next Gen's praises enough. I'm always recommending his channel. I really think you're one of the best creators in the game. I think you've got some of the coolest theories. I think the way you think about things and the way you try to conceptualize particular outcomes or particular theories, I think it's very sound, and I think it comes from an author's perspective. And, you know, guys, if you're listening, whether it be here on YouTube, over on Twitch, whether you end up listening to the Spotify version, I put all his links in the chat, man. Follow this man. He's a very bright guy. If you love Kingdom Hearts, you love gaming, or just want to talk about media, he's a great guy to go to. So definitely hit him up. Next Gen, dude, not only thank you for coming on, thank you for, you know, supporting the show the way you do. You know, you always have kind words to say. Again, I can't thank you for going on. I want to thank everybody in the chat for showing up. I'm so sorry, guys. If I could get to every single message in the chat, I would, but I wouldn't get any sleep. You guys are awesome. Literally just throwing message after message in the chat. I love having all of you here. I want to give another special shout out to Jan Van S, who became the newest Sage of the Lodge in the earlier episode. And then I suppose we close this out with a thank you for you, Next Gen. Really appreciate you, bro.
Oh, just real quick.
Yes.
Jan Van S, I also want to give you a shout out as well, because like a year ago when I did a live stream for you across the finale, you said that you bought my book, and I never saw your comment live, so I never got to thank you live. And I've always wanted to find you to say thank you. So thank you.
There you go. Hang on real tight. Since you brought it up, I wasn't gonna be that guy. But you know, you brought it up. Our good man Next Gen has written a novel, The Light Within Tears. I've put the link to that in the episode description as well. Definitely worth checking out. And without further ado, if you're watching on Twitch, please stick around. We're going to raid the Cynic. He's a boss. He's been subscribed to the Lodge for like over a year now. So he's a great guy to get in with. Next Gen, dude, thank you again for coming on. Love talking to you, and just keep up the good work, bro.
All right, thank you, man.
All right, we're on our way out. Good night, everybody.